Hi everyone. In this lesson we'll be looking at ancient Roman religion in Pompeii. The ancient Romans were pagans. They worshipped many different gods. This belief in many gods is called polytheism. Belief in one god is called monotheism. Jews, Muslims and Christians believe in one god, so these religions are monotheistic. The Romans, like many people in the ancient world, believed in many different gods. So this was very common in the ancient world. In ancient Egypt, in ancient Greece, ancient Rome, they worshipped many different gods, and there could be male gods, there could be female gods, and there were gods for all different things. And sometimes, in ancient Egypt, for example, they mixed the gods a bit. For example, they would have the body of a human being and the face or the head of an animal. That's the way they did it in Egypt. But in Rome, they would have a human-like god. He'd have a human face and a human body, but the gods could still be male or female. So there was lots of different male and female gods, and here's a statue of one of the female gods there. Their gods were based to a large extent on the 12 Olympian Greek gods. The Romans viewed gods as superhuman, immortal forces, so they would live forever, they're immortal, and that they controlled particular spheres of nature. For example, Diana was goddess of hunting and the moon. They saw their gods as spirits at work in every aspect of life. So the gods weren't just living in another world, they weren't living up in the sky and you never have anything to do with them. They were actively involved in the world. Worship took the form of offerings, sacrifices, festivals, and rituals. So with an offering, you'd give something to the god. With a sacrifice, you might sacrifice an animal for the sake of the god. You'd have festivals, like today there's Christmas and Easter for Christians, and you'd have rituals as well that would go along with it. Divination was also a major part of the religion. This is telling the will of the gods from signs and omens. So if something happens, that might mean the god wants something done. This included practices such as reading the entrails of sacrificed animals. So you'd read the entrails and that might mean a particular thing, that the god wanted something, or this had to happen, or this was going to happen. Roman gods worshipped by the people of Pompeii and Herculaneum included Jupiter, who was the king of the gods, or Jupiter as it may have been pronounced. He was the king of the gods. In this picture, you can see Jupiter here. He's got hair, he's got a beard. He doesn't really look like a god, does he? He just looks like a human being. He just looks like a normal human being, but they believed he was a god. And once again, this is fairly typical to have a king of the gods. In ancient Greece, they had Zeus, who was the king of the gods. They believed in many gods. They believed in male and female gods, but they had Zeus as the king of the gods. In ancient Egypt, there was many different gods as well, but Amun-Ra was like the main god. There was also Juno, Bacchus, Apollo, the god of light, Cybele, Diana, the god of hunting, a female goddess, Priapus, Venus, that's where we get the name of the planet Venus from, Venus, and Mars. Once again, that's where the name Mars comes from. And Mars was the god of war for the ancient Romans. Some of the other gods worshipped were Vesta, Neptune, Mercury, and Vulcan. So once again, that's where the names of the planets come from. So, we've got 8 planets in our solar system. We used to say there was 9 planets, but Pluto is no longer considered a proper planet. So we say there's 8 planets now. But of course, these are some of the planets: Neptune, Mercury, Mars, so on. That's where the names of the planets comes from. These were gods worshipped by the ancient Romans. Vesta was a female goddess, and she had a special group of priestesses who served her, and these were called the Vestal Virgins. So they were special priestesses dedicated to her. And if you like the show Star Trek, you might have, or the movies, there was the TV show Star Trek and the movies Star Trek. If you're a fan of Star Trek, you might remember Spock, who was one of the characters from the show and the movies. And of course, he came from the planet Vulcan. So that's where the name Vulcan comes from. It was an ancient Roman god. There was also emperor worship in Pompeii. From the time of Augustus onwards, the imperial cult became especially prominent in provincial cities and towns. And this is a statue of the Emperor Augustus. The Emperor Augustus was the first emperor of Rome, and he was one of the greatest emperors Rome ever had. He ruled the empire for about 40 years. And his original name was Octavian, and then they gave him the name Augustus, and they actually named the month of August after him. So the Roman Senate at the time did this. They gave him the name Augustus, and they named the month of August after him. And of course, they worshipped him as the emperor. This is not unusual and uncommon in the ancient world. The ancient Egyptians believed that their pharaohs were gods. The other people in the ancient world around the world worshipped their leaders. Even Japan, right? Even Japan, just 70 years ago during World War II, they thought their emperor, Hirohito, was a god. And of course, the Americans won World War II. They defeated the emperor Hirohito. And the general Douglas MacArthur, the great American general, he told Hirohito to tell his people that he was not a god. And guess what? Hirohito actually did it. He went on radio and he announced to his people that he was not a god. And he said, I'm not a god, I'm just like you, I'm just like everybody else. So he was still the emperor, but he admitted he wasn't a god. And, and in other countries around the world, like Nepal, Nepal no longer has a royal family, but they used to have a royal family. And, they thought they were living gods as well. So it's not uncommon in the ancient world, and even in some modern countries, that they've had people who they thought were gods. So the ancient Romans worshipped Augustus, and he became especially prominent in provincial cities and towns. It gave the opportunity to publicise their loyalty to the emperor, as well as to move upwards socially. So if you wanted to make yourself look good and get promoted and so on, you could worship the emperor. There were other religions in Pompeii. For example, there's evidence of Hinduism in Pompeii. There was actually a Hindu god, Lakshmi, whose statue has been found. Now, we're not sure exactly what happened. Maybe there was a tourist who brought the statue in, or maybe there was people in Pompeii who worshipped the god. But it's very interesting, because there must have been some contact between India and the Roman world. And, there is some actual evidence of Hinduism in ancient Pompeii, so it's quite amazing, I think. The ancient Egyptian goddess Isis was also worshipped in Pompeii, and this is her temple. This is the temple of Isis in Pompeii. These are the ruins of the temple. And that was a popular religion, and one of the reasons people liked that is because it gave that they believed in an afterlife, and so it gave people the idea that they would have an afterlife, and I guess a lot of people liked that, and so she was quite popular. There is also some evidence of Christianity, but some of this evidence is disputed. They found what they think might be a cross, so they say that's evidence of Christianity, but some people say, oh no, it's not really a cross, it's actually something else, it represents something else. So there's a bit of uncertainty about that. The temples. There was lots of temples in Pompeii, especially around the Forum. There was a number of temples and sanctuaries at Pompeii. Temples at Herculaneum are yet to be excavated. A lot of Herculaneum is not excavated yet. It's still underground, and part of it is actually underground of a modern city that's there. Temples were regarded as homes for the gods and goddesses. So you'd go to the temple and that would be considered the god's home. So there was a variety of religious belief in the ancient Roman world. There was a variety of belief in Pompeii. I think it was very interesting what these people believed in.